I still remember my first time attempting a bench press at the gym. My hands gripped the metal bar tightly, and I was determined to channel all my strength into making it defy gravity. However, after only a measly 4 reps, my arms felt like overcooked noodles, and I succumbed to my exhaustion, forcing my spotters to pick up the bar for me. Externally, I laughed it off, but internally, I was frustrated by how I couldn't even do a full set of bench presses the first time. The thought lingered in the back of my mind as I came home from the gym, still slightly embarrassed about my futile first attempt. I believe I speak for many perfectionists when I say that I have trouble letting go of unrealistically high expectations when it comes to learning a new skill for the first time. The disappointing initial results hurt my pride, and the overwhelming sense of defeat often leads me to give up before I even give myself a chance to fail. As an artist, the frustration intrinsic in the creative process posed many striking similarities to the ups and downs of my fitness journey. Throughout my childhood, I was known as the art kid, always doodling Pokemon in my worksheets or being fascinated by the art styles of my favorite shows. Growing more advanced in my skills throughout high school, I began entering in a number of competitions and won a couple of awards throughout the years. However, as I sat in my AP 2D art and design class in junior year, I was stumped by how much trouble I had translating themes into tangible artwork. I was spending weeks scrolling on Pinterest, downloading reference images that would just sit there collecting dust in a file folder somewhere. My sketches never quite fit my vision, and I was getting more and more frustrated as weeks passed by and I still hadn't produced a finished piece. Finding roadblocks in nearly every idea, I closed my eyes and tried to imagine myself as a kindergartner. Instantly transported to a classroom full of colorful crafts and toys in the early 2010s, I recall scribbling away at printer paper with markers at the corner of a desk. Furrowing my eyebrows, I fuzzily tried to remember what it was like to create art as a 5-year-old. There was something so incredibly magical about being fully aware of every new line, shape, and color, and I always knew I was exactly where I needed to be, arms on the table and feet grounded into the floor. As I delved deeper into my focused art zone, hours would slip by without notice as my surroundings blurred into the edges of my imagination. Young children who have yet to learn strict societal rules of what looks good or bad are boldly unapologetic in their creative process, showing shaky lines, holes in the paper, and contorted forms. This isn't to say that children's art are hideous, but rather that they possess a certain advantageous mindset. Children are completely present when they create artworks and aren't constrained by expectations such as fear about deadlines or doubts about their art skills. My mind began to connect the dots. If the process of creating art can help our brains focus on the present moment, then how can it also help us express our emotions in that moment? This question was especially relevant to my experience as a junior in high school, a period of time where I felt deep fear about lagging behind my peers and not doing good enough. To calm my anxiety, I focused all my time into making sure every single hour of my life was filled with extracurriculars, studying, or homework. Staying busy distracted me from feeling a general lack of direction, despite not finding much of what I did to be memorable or meaningful anyways. I began to panic when I couldn't even look at my planner without feeling dread, and it became increasingly difficult to concentrate on homework. My mind became more muddled and foggy, and I just had an intense urge to run away from it all. In an attempt to calm the swirling cacophony of my pacing mind, I gazed into the eyes of death. As I thought about the various ways that death defined our busy yet overcomplicated lives, the vague theme of my AP portfolio narrowed itself into 2 words: memento mori, Latin for remember you must die. Although I haven't experienced the grief of losing someone close to me, I was awed by the thin tightrope we all walk between life and death every day. Our lives can change in an instant by some unfortunate event attributed to a higher power, bad luck, or statistical probability, flipping our worlds upside down and putting a pause to the toils of our busy lives. This can look like unwashed dishes in the counter, a potted plant knocked over with dirt still on the floor, or the sound of clocks ticking throughout the night. This idea inspired the piece Memento Mori, pictured here on the left, which contains many elements of the thin barrier between life and death in its small details. This includes the random objects scattered throughout the piece meant to represent everyday life, melting clocks symbolizing death's inevitability, and the two skeletons reaching out to each other being the most prominent part of the piece. In subsequent months, I also produced the Cosmos of Death, pictured here on the right, which takes on a more reverent and accepting perspective on death. Yes, death is heartbreaking, but if we could live forever, then there would be no catalyst that forces us to re-examine what we truly want out of our limited time on Earth. My first complete collection of works, including these and the last two shown in the last slide, was a formidable undertaking, and I had to let go of many expectations to break my creative barrier. I was essentially creating like a kindergartner, just focusing on one step at a time. Multiple times throughout the process of making this portfolio, I wanted to just give up, but I'm grateful that I persevered. Expressing myself through art showed me how powerful the creative process was in calming the soul and translating chaotic thoughts into themes about death, human connection, and loneliness. These works still remain deeply special to me even after a year and were a crucial factor in my personal growth throughout junior year. Breaking the mindset that any time not spent on achievements was wasted allowed me to form meaningful human connections with my friends and family, which has truly been the most wonderful aspect of my life, what I will remember when I die. So, I took this transformative experience and began to model it using simpler themes and tools throughout my everyday life. I filled small sketchbooks with brush pens, fine liners, often with limited colors, black only, capturing snapshots of my environment and time and of my thoughts during that time. In these images, you can see all sorts of random objects, from cats to pens, chip bags, classrooms, just little bits and pieces of my life in general. It's from these humble sketches that I produced award-winning pieces, the designs for TEDxValenciaHighSchool teachers for the last 2 years, and captured moments from how I viewed the world. My art teacher, Yikei, who is the master teacher at Dutch Masters Art Academy, where I began taking lessons in sophomore year, has been one of my biggest mentors and supporters throughout my art career. When I asked her about the transformative experiences with art that she observed in her students, who ranged from young children to adults picking up a new hobby, she emphasized on the beautiful response that art has towards people's stress. These are her exact words. Students were having such an amazing time being immersed in an activity that involved making something that was interesting to them and original to them. Frankly, that kept me going as a teacher because it wasn't about creating for myself or for sales, but what I truly enjoyed was watching students change from the experiences and seek relief from the stresses of day-to-day life. I show people these sketches because I want you to know that it doesn't take fancy tools nor the skills of a gifted artist to enjoy the immense benefits that comes with creating. I know the reflex response I may get from many of you are statements such as, "I can't draw, I'm not an artist," or "I don't have enough time to incorporate art into my daily life." Yes, these are all understandable concerns. This hint of intimidation hangs in the air when an artist asks someone who doesn't consider themselves an artist to jump into the world. I know how disappointing and frustrating it may be, especially when you want to create something, but it doesn't turn out the way that you imagine it to be. And as our world gets increasingly complex and bogged down by the mundane matters of everyday life, it can be difficult to find a reason to create. With the rise of AI art applications such as Midjourney and DALL-E, rumors of replacing artists with AI in the professional art industry have spurred on an important question. What is the point of creating art if a robot can do it better and faster than me? Yes, maybe AI is technically more efficient than humans when it comes to creating art, but what they lack are stories like these. Transformative experiences of how art can help us find what makes us fulfilled or unhappy within our lives. I needed art during that critical period to capture the chaos within and encapsulate that intense energy into my works. I believe that everyone needs some sort of creative outlet because there simply isn't anything more human than creating something out of nothing. There came a time in our development where we started focusing too much on getting the right answers and the end product that we forgot just how nice it is to sit down and be immersed in an activity that doesn't involve scrolling on Instagram. In fact, when was the last time you were away from all distractions and were completely focused on the current task at hand? With this question, I invite you to break your own creative barrier, starting with removing preconceived notions you may have about your art skills. I want you to imagine yourself as a kindergartner, the same way I did when I was stumped with my AP portfolio. That may have been 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, or even more. Think about all the drawings and crafts that your parents have saved over the years and how you ever so carelessly created those with simple tools and not a worry in the world about how others perceive this unique window into your mind. By no means is this process easy, so I can't emphasize enough how important it is to start small. Maybe 15 minutes of sketching random objects throughout the house, filling up a doodle sheet with flowers, cutting up paper into geometric shapes. But just know that when you pick up your tool, whether it be a paintbrush, marker, or pen, you are on the cusp of breaking your creative barrier and connecting yourself with centuries' worth of unique perspectives on the human experience. Create to connect yourself with others in the community facing the same trials and tribulations. Create to find that missing element in your life you can't quite put your finger on. And most importantly, create to be right here, right now. The value of art is intrinsic in the fact that when you come up to the canvas, your brushstrokes will never quite be the same as last time, and there will never be a moment like this in the universe ever again. Thank you.